Hello, my name is Robert Cripe, better known as Bob. Betty is my wife, and we have lived in Goshen area all of our lives. I've been asked to tell a story of the lightning protection industry in Goshen, past, present, and maybe in the future. It's a subject very dear to my heart. Today is October the 5th, 2022. The interview is being conducted in our apartment in the residence living will at Waterford Crossing. Producing the video is 5 Core Media, an educational arm of Goshen College. As I said, lightning protection has been a subject dear to my heart all my life. I hope I can make this an interesting presentation and get you a little familiar with how Goshen got named the lightning rod capital of the world. Several years ago, or maybe about a year and a half ago, I decided that I needed to write something, so I wrote a 12-page booklet here entitled The History of the Lightning Protection Industry in Goshen, Indiana. I wrote this before I was asked by the Historical Society to talk about this. As I said, the lightning protection business has been very dear to my heart. I hope this presentation will be enlightening to you. My extended family is involved in the business also in many ways. My parents were Forrest Cripe and his wife Martha Augsburger Cripe. Betty's parents were Beulah Sunday Showalter and Clyde Showalter. She grew up and was born in Angola. We have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. Marcia is our oldest. She's married to Chant Thompson. Mary Leah is married to Dan Kennedy. Melody is married to Charlie Winans. And Rob is married to the former Vicky Rookstugel. I was born 1217 South Main Street here in Goshen, directly across the street from Parkside Elementary School. I was born in the house that we lived in. At that time, doctors came to the home for delivery. You didn't have to go to the hospital. So I lived in that home until I was 8 years old. Then we moved 4 homes south of that, 1307 South Main, and I lived there until I got married in 1950. Where did I go to school? I went to kindergarten at Parkside Elementary. For junior high school, I went to the Goshen Junior High School, located on South 5th Street, directly across from the Masonic Temple. Then I went to the Goshen Senior High School, 4 years. After that, I went for 2 years with an interrupted period of time to Goshen College, and I had a couple of short courses, one in Michigan State and one at Cornell University. I really didn't learn that much about lightning and lightning protection in schools. Most of the information I got was from books I read on the side, but I did learn one thing. Ben Franklin discovered that lightning was electricity. On a stormy day in 1752, he took a kite with a conducting string out during a thunderstorm, and an induced charge of lightning followed down that string into a mason jar, and from that he concluded that lightning was electricity. The next morning he wrote a paper about it, and that afternoon he got some materials and put lightning protection on his home. This lightning protection consisted of a middling cable going down the ridge of the house and a down lead going down each end to the ground with grounds in the earth as deep as you could get it. He put little spikes on top for the lightning to strike, but all of his neighbors and friends and even the science community thought he was a little bit crazy, because at that time all of the residents of our country felt that lightning was an act of God, like rain, snow, sleet, hail, fog. So when he tried to present his paper on lightning protection in his newspaper called Poor Richard's Almanac, he was sort of laughed at, and nobody even believed that lightning could be controlled. But he heard over in England and in France, they were having problems, lightning striking the beautiful tall churches and cathedrals. So he went to France and England and presented his paper and with pictures what he found, and a few people over there thought it worth a trial. So they started to put lightning protection on some of these tall edifices over there, and they were saved from lightning damage. People in England and France started to use lightning protection. He came back to the States, told a story what happened in England and France, and he convinced people maybe we should consider lightning protection here. It was a long, long time until the industry really developed, but it developed through small companies that started to make component parts and sell them to farmers or installing contractors that wanted to install lightning protection. It got larger as time grew, because a lot of these buildings, especially elevators, these large elevators and large barns, were being struck by lightning all the time. Then they found out, after they put lightning protection systems on these farms and barns and elevators, that they were safe from lightning. Also on churches and steeples. About that time, a man in Goshen by the name of Amzi Hoovens, who was an entrepreneur and really enjoyed doing new things. He had several farms. He had a dairy where they delivered milk to the various homeowners that wanted it. He decided maybe he should put lightning protection on his farm barns. So he had a little factory. So he started making some component parts and put lightning protection on his own facilities. Little by little, people heard about this, and hardwares would ride in and order materials so that they could sell to the farmers. And then a lot of small entrepreneur businessmen that wanted to have a small family business decided they could sell and install lightning protection as a business. One of these people was my grandfather, Henry Cripe, who had several businesses, contracting and several others. He decided he had two sons at home that weren't doing much. Maybe he could start an installation lightning protection business. So my grandfather, Henry, started selling lightning protection. He got a couple trucks. He trained his two sons, and for a number of years, they installed lightning protection systems throughout northern Indiana and southern Michigan. Even they had a barn behind their house, and they started to make a few component parts that they designed that the Goshen company didn't make. They started increasing their dealerships to the point they were becoming a competitor to the Goshen company. And the Goshen company really got irritated that they were losing some of their customers to this new company, which they named the Cripe Lightning Rod Company. It got so bad that in about 1929 or 1930, Mr. Hoovens, Mr. Hoovens told his wife and his son-in-law, who's a lawyer and a member of their board, to go over there and see if we can buy them out. We need to buy them out and get them out of our hair. We're going to lose business. So they came over one afternoon and talked to my grandfather, father, and uncle, said, we'd like to buy you out. And they said, well, I don't know. I don't think we want to sell, but I'll tell you that, well, they say, put a price on it. Well, they talked about it. They went in the back room, talked about it, and came back about 3 o'clock, and they said, well, we don't want to sell, but they said, we're going to put a ridiculous price that you're going to have to accept by 5 o'clock this afternoon. They said at that time, remember this is right before the Depression, 29 and 30, said we want $30,000 cash in a certified bank cashier's check, and we want that by 5 o'clock today, or the offer's over. Mr. Hoovens went back and told his board what he would do. At 5 minutes till 5, they came back with a certified check for $30,000. So my grandfather had $30,000 cash. My father had $10,000. My uncle had $10,000. And they didn't put it in the bank. They sold it away in the safe. Luckily, they didn't put it in the bank and lose it during the Depression. My grandfather did buy a farm and started farming. My uncle went to work for the Goshen Lightning Rod Company, and my dad bought a service station and a grocery on South Main Street called Parkside Service. But during this time, what happened, they were installing systems, and for grounds, they just dug a hole in the ground, put a punch bar down in the ground, and pushed a cable down as far as they could, then filled it back up. Well, in the wintertime, fill it back up with sand and gravel, in the wintertime when it froze, it heaved up and the ground came up and they lost the ground. So my grandfather devised a device, and I have a picture of it here, or the device here. This is a ground stabilizer that he devised, that you put the cable in here, push it down. This is just a display. Push it down the hole. When it gets down the hole, pull the cable a little bit, and it wedges itself to the point that the cable would not come up then when it froze and thawed. That's when my father and grandfather and uncle decided they ought to get a patent. So they took this over and showed Mr. Hoovens that they were going to get a patent. And Mr. Hoovens said, look, you don't have an office. I've got an office here and a staff and some girls. Let me get a patent for you. So he sent this in to the patent office. When the patent came back 6 months later, my grandfather went over to see about it, and here the patent was in Mr. Hoovens' name. So my grandfather said, we're starting our own company. We're getting out of this business of selling somebody else's product. So that's how the Cripe Lightning Rods Company started in business in the mid-20s before they sold out. What happened to the industry back in 1931 when the Depression hit? There were probably 8 or 10 little small manufacturing companies around the United States manufacturing lightning protection, but the Goshen Lightning Rod Company was the largest. These little companies started to file bankruptcy and go out of business. My Mr. Hoovens decided maybe we can do something to save these companies. So he went to several of these companies and said, you know, why don't we combine all of our business and move it to Goshen and get another name and try to save this industry. So a number of companies, and I have the names of the companies here that were involved in this. They were the Hawkeye Lightning Rod Company of Iowa, the Miller Brothers Lightning Rod Company of St. Louis, Electra Protection Company of New York, Chicago, and Dodd and Struthers Lightning Rod Company of Kansas, Nebraska, and Canada. They had facilities in Canada. So they came in and organized. In the meantime, one of the Benjamin Franklins of that time that was promoting the industry was a man by the name of Professor Wes Dodd. He was a professor of electricity and physics in one of the universities in Iowa. He would travel Canada and the United States giving demonstrations and telling about how lightning protection should protect these buildings. Everybody knew Professor Wes Dodd. So Mr. Hamza Hoovens, told these members of the companies that were bringing their facilities and their equipment and everything into Goshen, and about the same time, that's the time he bought the Goshen company, or the Cripe Lightning Rod. They were all in one building. They brought the equipment in, and then the Depression hit, and things really went downhill. These companies could not operate that way. Even though they chose the name Wes Dodd for the company, so it was not Goshen anymore. At that time, it was Wes Dodd. The business is still located on West Lafayette Street. The Independent Protection Company, later, my uncle left working for the Wes Dodd and Goshen Company, started his own company in 1931 or 33, and he named it the Independent Protection Company. And that company consisted of my uncle was president, my aunt was vice president, we had a secretary and a treasurer. And before he organized the business, he went to the bank and he said, "Look, I'm going to start a business here and manufacture our own lightning protection. Do you think I could borrow some money from you to get started? I don't have enough to buy a carload of wire and all these things." He told the president of the company, he said, would your company or bank buy some stock? And he said, "Yes, we will." But then the Depression hit. When my uncle started the company and went back to the president of the bank, he said, "Look, we're in such a shape, we cannot not buy any stock." And my uncle said, "Well, look, I need a name on our board that's the president of a bank to give my bank or my company name, Independent Protection, some stability." And he said, "Well, listen, you can put my name on." My uncle gave him one share of stock, and Mr. Aiken was a member at large of the company board of directors, and so that's how he had a little credit to get started. The company grew and grew and grew, and I got interested in it working summers. I would work during the summer vacation out in the factory, putting parts together, running the cable machines, doing some shipping work, and other things like that, learning the business until I got out of college. Then I went to work full-time. I went to work full-time in the shipping room and out with one of the dealers, learning installation. So I learned the business from the ground up. The business is still growing, and we now have several of our grandchildren in it. My son's son, Evan, is in the business, and his daughter, Erica, is in the business, and my brother, who's also in the business, has a son-in-law in the business. So we have people in the business. The business is growing, things are moving along, and we continue to be a factor in the Goshen area as a manufacturer of lightning protection. Now, if there's any questions my friend here has, I'll be happy to answer them. Actually, the family, my grandfather was the main thing. He was a great entrepreneur. He had, whatever business he went in, he was successful. In fact, I found pictures in his attic. He had a construction company. At the same time, he had the lightning rod business, and he dug the basement and put in the foundation for the Goshen Theater, or the Jefferson Theater, which is now the Goshen Theater. So he put in the foundation for that. So we have a lot of extra activities around Goshen that our family's involved in. Well, Underwriters Laboratories put in a program called the Master Label Program, where you could fill out a form, send it in, and they would come out and inspect the system with an inspector, and their records over the many, many years proved that a system on a building was 99% effective in preventing lightning from striking and damaging that building. Our company was one of the first ones to start putting lightning protection on trees. Trees are very valuable. Some people, value their tree, their shade tree built right near their home. They value that shade tree as much as their home. So we devised some lightning protection equipment and system to put on trees. All the trees around Mount Vernon are protected. All the trees in parks and valuable trees, many of them have lightning protection on. And then too, engineers now are designing lightning protection in the design and specifications on new public and industrial high-rise buildings, hospitals, schools, etc., etc. So we are doing a lot of different things, including with computers and all the electrical equipment in buildings now. Secondary lightning surge arresters have become an important part, and common grounding of all the grounds within a building is very important and is part of a lightning protection system. So when you say lightning rods, it really is a lightning protection system. The cables, the points, the grounds, the surge protection, and common grounding between the electric ground, telephone ground, television ground, any ground, gas pipes coming into a building, they have a common ground so that there's no difference of potential in the grounding systems. Not really, except when I get questions like this from you. No. I worked there for 60 some years. I'm 96 years old. And for my 95th birthday, my son got me 95 pieces of turtles, candy turtles. We developed a bit, also during this time we developed the turtle top bus business as an adjunct, which has grown and grown. So our business is growing. Oh yes, absolutely, yes. I don't go out and chase them, but I watch them. I love to see it rain. Okay, I like travel. My wife and I have traveled all over the world. I like photography, and I like our family. Our family is fabulous, I'll tell you. We've got a family supportive, next to none. They're all good Christian, tithing people, and I love them all. As an over-the-hill old man, I guess. I don't know how they did. How do they describe me, Rob?
A man of integrity and honesty.
Yeah, you have to be honest. I would advise anybody that wants to get in business today, they have to follow the golden rule. You have to treat others the same way you want to be treated. Be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, pleased, and reverent. And not only reverent, but tithe. Tithing from your salary or your wages is very important. Helping others is just as important as helping yourself. When there's a need and you can help it, and not a lot of times we did it without any fanfare at all. And we're doing it today.